Hey everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Mike Tomaro, saxophonist, composer, arranger, jazz studies program director at Duquesne University, and co-author of Instrumental Jazz Arranging, a comprehensive and practical guide. Mike is here to show us how to effectively support your melody.
Thanks, Dan. So the purpose of this lesson is to show you how to develop basic compositional and arranging concepts to provide more than just a supportive role to the melody. The example we're going to look at is the ending to my arrangement of Rosalina in the Observatory from the Nintendo game Super Mario Galaxy. After the final cadence of the song, I composed an outro using cyclical major ninth chords. Atop this, I composed a simple melody that's played in unison by the trumpets. The two remaining elements are the counter melody, played in unison by alto and tenor saxes, and accompaniment figures played by the trombones and baritone sax. Starting with some very basic ideas for each of these, I developed them by adding rhythmic and melodic interest. First, let's listen to the final product. By the way, I'm using Finale with the out-of-the-box soft synth sounds that come with the program. These basic sounds are sufficient for me for playback as I'm writing. Now, in reality, the least interesting element of this ending is the melody, consisting of one note per chord change with a single pickup to each. Now, let's look at the development of the accompaniment. The first iteration you will see and hear is merely a single four-note chord per chord change, two tied dotted half notes. The trombone section is in close position with the baritone sax playing chord roots. The second version adds a very basic melodic element, arpeggiation. By breaking the single 6-beat chord into two separate dotted half notes and arpeggiating upward to the next chord tone, I've created some melodic interest. Also, you'll notice that the baritone is now playing a combination of roots and fifths. In the third version, these same chord voicings are made even more interesting by adding a rhythmic figure to the first measure of each two-bar chord. Here I've chosen to use only two different rhythms, the same one in the first, fifth, and ninth bars, and a different one in the third, seventh, and 11th bars. The final version of this uses a larger variety of rhythms and creates a 4-bar melodic arc, the trombones rising in the first two bars and falling in the last two. So, like I said, that's an interesting way to develop, and I think the final, very final version that's in the very first clip that you would have looked at may be even slightly different from that. But that's a basic idea as to how we would develop that. Now let's move on to the counter melody. So here in this particular one, the saxes are playing the counter melody in octaves till the very end. You'll notice that at the very end, the last couple measures, I actually go back into unison. This is to help slow everything down. So in the initial version, for each two-bar chord, there's a very simple 3-note melody that's transposed downward diatonically to fit each chord. In the second version, some interesting rhythmic ideas are employed to add further interest. The third version adds even more melodic and rhythmic interest, still retaining the upward pattern every 2 bars. In the final version, the melodic arc is now a 4-bar one, with the saxes playing a rising line in the first 2 bars, followed by a falling one in the next 2. So now I would suggest that we go back and let's look at and listen to the very first clip again so you can see how all this stuff fits together. So you're going to hear the final versions of the trombone accompaniments and the sax counter melody. So like I said, that makes that for that what could have been and what started out whenever I was writing it, a very, very simple ending. And whenever I was working on it, for a few moments I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I realized that that kind of goes against every bone in our bodies as composers and arrangers to let that be and just let it be this really simple thing. So it ended up developing into a much larger animal. So I hope you've enjoyed this bit of insight into what this is like, developing not just an ending, but any situation that uses counter melodies and accompaniment figures. Thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.